Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to another episode of 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. Tonight's floor plan, we're going to get into the Miami Heat's 106-98 victory over the Detroit Pistons. With me to do that, we have the coach Sean Rochester as well as Digital Adel. We are going to dive into this matchup. The Heat get this done, but it was not pretty in every quarter, every respect of the game. So we got lots to talk about there. Before we dive into all that stuff, though, I do want to give a shout out to Off the Floor. That is our Discord server, $2.99 a month will get you access to all the channels to talk all Heat all day. You can get away from all the stuff that's happening on other social media platforms that maybe is a distraction and just stick to Miami Heat basketball, but you also can talk Dolphins, fantasy hoops, music, culture. $2.99 Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. I can't say that word tonight. The link is right here in the description, so check that out. Off the Floor. So the Heat get it done, and it wasn't pretty. It was a tale of two halves in certain respects. In that the backcourt for Miami was really, really hot early in this game. And then there was a quiet period, and Detroit kind of, made things interesting over and over again. They seem peskier than they should be. Let's just get initial thoughts before we dive into any of the statistics, but also we have all of our segments with our player of the game and our plays of the game before we dive into any of that. Sean, let's start with you this time. Just general thoughts on the Heat's victory tonight. They get one against Detroit. Dwyane Wade statue appreciation night. So there's good vibes as well. What were your thoughts on the Heat's win?
Yeah, it's always good to get a win. Wasn't pretty, as you mentioned before. The biggest concern, and I think we'll get into this at some point, is the rebounding over the course of 3 games is horrendous. I cannot imagine after tonight. I mean, they were at the Pistons got 34.5% of their misses. So essentially, 3 to 4 out of every 10 misses fall back in their hands. And when you give up those second chances, like the Heat gave up a 103 defensive rating, which is pretty damn good. It should be lower if you simply just secure rebounds. Going into this game, they were the worst team in the NBA. 40% of the opponents' rebounds are going into their hands. It just can't happen. You can talk about size. You can point fingers at certain people. I know I was reading in the Discord. Make sure you check that out. We were on playback. Check that out. We're finger pointing. Oh, it's Nico's fault. Oh, it's Bam's. No, it's everybody's fault. It's a team game. You got to get those defensive rebounds. I think it will get fixed over time. They just got to get better at that. And we'll get into the other things, but that's the one detail that just stuck at me. Every possession you gave up those offensive rebounds to Beef Stew, to Duran, to Tobias Harris, to their guards. It was really painful to watch it a lot of times.
And that's how the Pistons breathed life back into this game over and over again. Adele, I mean, it was a situation where you're talking 19-10 on the offensive glass, 54-44 was the final tally. The Pistons out-rebounded Miami. I'm glad that Sean positioned it the way that he did in terms of mentioning that it's not just about Nico, because it's really not. But they did go Jaquez. Jaquez had 9 rebounds, so he did kind of fill that void for them late. That was kind of the lineup that they went to. What are your initial thoughts? I know that the rebounding thing is definitely going to be something we're going to continue to watch, and what combinations up front and as quickly as they can get away from Thomas Bryant as they can get. We're going to be watching for all that. But your initial thoughts on tonight's game?
So just to piggyback off what you and Sean had said about the rebounding, 20-7, they lost second chance points in that regard. So the Pistons, as you mentioned, kept getting right back in the game off those second chance points. A lot of it too, I saw, and when you talk about effort, to Sean's point of effort, a play that stands out in my mind was Archie Diacono. I can't pronounce his name properly. But anyway, he stood in front of the rebound. The guy is not a leaper by any imagination, can barely get his hands over the rim. And he just stood there like bunny hopping, trying to tip back the ball. And not one Heat player came over to just snatch it off of him. That just epitomizes the rebounding woes to me. We throw around names, individuals like Nico, which I was one of them. I've noticed he's getting beat up on the boards a lot this season. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's 6'10", but that's about it. He's not really a physical inside presence. But you can minimize that by boxing out, by guards digging back. Everybody's got to help, as you mentioned. So I definitely agree with that. But what I really liked was that throughout the game, and especially the first half, Tyler and Terry played really, really well together. For all the narrative of how's that backcourt going to work, they were excellent in that first half. In fact, they both finished that first half with over 11 points each. I think they had identical stat lines almost. 11 points, 4 assists, and they were just doing their thing. And so I think they have their strengths and their weaknesses, but I think it's working better than people anticipated it. In them two feeding off each other specifically. And I really like too how when this team gets rolling with their defense, they still end up winning the points in the paint battle, even though we just talked about how much they struggle physicality wise inside. And they finished again winning that points in the paint battle over Detroit, 36-42. Miami had 42 paint points. And a lot of that comes off of their defense because they won the fast break points too, 17-18. And so whenever those guards are active, and particularly in that second half, Haywood Highsmith, man, he had a couple of really big steals and deflections. Jimmy Butler had a couple of good deflections off of traps, and that led to easy baskets at the other end. And I think that was really the difference in the game.
Agree. I was happy to see Spo went 10 deep and started to. I was afraid Highsmith may not get minutes again, but eventually he did. They kept the turnovers down. I'm looking at it here. They only had 9 turnovers to Detroit 16. So that's a common thread when you talk about that backcourt working. I think that we continue to watch the turnover numbers be pretty acceptable game over game. I mean, it's 3 games. I mean, we're not going to go crazy here, but I do think that is a worthy call out. Before we get into our segments, the other thing I just wanted to shout out for this team so far is the Thomas Bryant minutes. People are going crazy about this. Do either of you think, because Alex was on off the floor saying that there's no reason why Kel'el Ware should not get minutes at this point over Thomas Bryant. Before we get to our first segment, do either of you want to make the case for the Thomas Bryant minutes you saw tonight against the Orlando Magic?
Has anyone in the history of mankind thought they could do more in 1.6 seconds than Thomas Bryant at the end of the first quarter today?
That was great.
Who knows? He didn't appear to not know the clock. I think he really thought that he could accomplish all of that. We're all 3 ambitious people. I don't think I could do all that in 1.6 seconds. I don't think prime Dwyane Wade, his rookie year as Flash, could have done that. That was just insane. A complete blunder. I just wanted to add one thing, and I don't think you can go to Ware. I'm not even going to entertain it, to be honest with you, because I just think it's ridiculous. He's going to be packing his bag for Sioux Falls in about a week and a half, and that's okay. I don't say that to slight him. I think it's good for his development, and maybe in a few weeks, a few months, he'll be ready to roll similar to Nico. But I want to add to Adel's point about the backcourt, because a lot of times we get accused of having big biceps because we're always carrying water for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
They were great on offense. They were terrible on defense. However, we want net positive. And I'm not looking at plus minus to decide this. I think in my mind, I think we can agree that backcourt was a net positive tonight when you look at their overall game, even if they were poor on defense. And I think that's all you can ask for because it's not a perfect fit, but they're making it work right now.
It's a great point in terms of just plays, impact plays, staving off runs from Detroit. They did those things. And you're right, though. I mean, when you look at Cade and what Tim Hardaway Jr., they kind of got what they wanted at times too. So it's kind of, you got to take the good with the bad. A player who had a sneaky good game is who we're going to go here. We're going to go to next with the aggressive player of the game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebyLynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebyLynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebyLynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
Sneaky Jimmy Butler, 7 of 11 from the field. Didn't hit a three-pointer tonight. Was 9 of 11 from the free throw line. 23 points in 33 minutes. Also added 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. No turnovers. Jimmy had a Jimmy Butler game. Adele, pre-show, we were talking about how easy he made it look and how quiet it kind of seemed. Jimmy Butler now has had 2 good games in a row. I think we're wanting to see him get more engaged with this quote-unquote new offense. Spo says we're not running a new offense, but there's elements of it that are new. Your thoughts on Jimmy's performance tonight in general, since he is the player of the game?
I thought he was fantastic in his way, right? Like, he got to the spots that he wanted to get to. And what I really like about the new philosophy on offense is the guards are the focus, right? Like Terry, Tyler, Early are the focus. And you could see whenever Jimmy felt like the Heat needed a bucket, he would get to his mid post and low post spot and just go to work. And so that ability to open the paint and draw that attention away from Jimmy makes it a little bit easier for him to operate. So if you've noticed, his efficiency's way up. That his field goal percentage is 63% this game. We said quietly, 63% from the field. Quietly. Like, that's an eye-popping number. He made his free throws tonight, which he didn't make in the first game. The last game, he's 81% from the free throw line. And then I have notes here from the fourth quarter. You know, I always chart their deflections and steals. And you have that double they were running. They were running that high double on Cade or Jay Nivey, whoever had the ball at the top of the wing. Jimmy tipped off of the double for a bucket, and then you had Jimmy drive and kick for a 3. Like, just his activity level in that fourth quarter was just excellent. And like I said, it just quietly made him the player of the game, because that's what a franchise player does. People don't realize how valuable a player like Jimmy is, just stopping runs, being able to get buckets by getting to his spot. So I thought he was fantastic tonight.
Sean, how do they balance the guards leading the charge early, making sure that Bam and Jimmy still get theirs? I know that it's ultimately like everybody picks their spots and there's probably an easy answer that way, but do you see anything that they could be doing differently that you think would get Bam and Jimmy engaged sooner? Or is this kind of the game plan where you let the guards kind of get you through the October 28th game against Detroit, because that's kind of the end game, is to get Jimmy to the finish line? What are your thoughts on how they're integrating kind of all these guys early on?
Yeah, I think, you know, Adele makes a great point about it's a philosophy. It's not so much like Spo said that they've changed the offense completely. You know, the 5-out buzzword, it's very guard oriented, right? Because you're not seeing a lot of post ups, but at the same time, it's 5-out from the beginning, and then it shape shifts, right? Like you mentioned Jimmy. Jimmy at times will pass and cut. He'll find an advantage in the middle. He'll post up in the mid post or the low post. Now you're playing 4-out, 1 in. He might not get the ball and fill back out. Now you're back into 5-out. You saw Nico do that a lot in the preseason, where he took advantage of matchup, you know, where he had an advantage over a bigger or smaller guy, I should say. The biggest thing I think with the guards, when you play 5-out, you have essentially 2 gaps either direction, right? Left or right. we don't have a visual here, but like you have 4 gaps around the outside because of where, in between these 2 offensive players around the outside of the perimeter. And when you create those double gaps, when you got a guy that's cutting or screening away, that's where I feel like Tyler really, especially, has been able to get downhill. I think the ball has been sticky at times with him, but that extra space allows him to get inside. You saw the driving kicks out to Terry. Terry shot the ball very well tonight. Terry can do the same thing, though. Like, he's better with the bounce. He can get downhill, and he can spray out. What you want to see is guys like Jaime cutting, because that spacing makes it harder for the help defense. I like what they're doing. Greg, I think your point about Bam, he's the one that seems to be right now struggling to find where should he be. And I think part of it is the 3-point shot. Part of it is the 5-out. He's skilled enough to do it. I think he's going to figure it out, and or the coaching staff is going to help him figure it out along with his teammates. It's just right now we're feeling things out. We have a good backcourt. They're creating offense. He'll find his. It's just right now he's not sure of where to be, it seems like.
Yeah, I think Jimmy has been – you've seen moments where Jimmy has seemed a little out of place, and Bam as well. And I think that to your point, it's inherent that the guards are going to kind of run the show here and probably get some of these stats early. I think it'll be interesting to see them figure out how to get their best players in the spots that make them most successful, because we know that they can't go all season with Bam Adebayo, averaging 10 points a game and stuff like that. So that's kind of the challenge ahead. But I think that that's actually more encouraging than if the guards were really struggling out the gate, at least on the offensive end. I think that there'd be a lot of other things that we definitely need to address. And Sean, you had a comment about Jimmy, or did we already hit that?
No, you're all good.
Cool. Let's go on to our next segment here. We are going to do the real estate shop defending the house defensive play of the night.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
You know who defended the house? Haywood Highsmith brought the noise tonight. There was multiple moments in the second half, in the first half. We charted one, and I'm going to use it as the jumping off point for the defensive. I guess you could call it a play. It was a series of plays. Haywood Highsmith stole the ball. It was 62-51 at this point. Miami was up. Haywood Highsmith stole the ball from Jaden Ivey. Terry Rozier got a 3. Haywood Highsmith then followed that up again with another steal on Malik Beasley, which led to an alley-oop dunk assisted by Tyler Herro to Bam Adebayo. That brought the lead to 64-51. Just shouting out Haywood Highsmith, because then later in the game, he had deflections, and he was a big part of what they did to kind of keep the Pistons at bay. So shout out to him there. Overall, how do you, Adele, I'll come back to you on this. We're starting to see the rotation shake out a little bit. Burks is getting his moments. Thomas Bryant's playing because I think Kevin Love is out. I think that we can all kind of agree on that. I think we need to give Jaime his due. He had a good game tonight. What were your thoughts on Jaime's night? As he kind of, if you look at the minutes, the way that they were distributed, he basically was, one of their top 5 guys in minutes. So he closed here. He was one of their best 5. Your thoughts on Jaquez off the bench?
So to speak to your first part about the rotation, I think Spo's really going to lean into spreading the minutes around this season to keep everybody fresh. He's playing a lot of people. He's playing 9-10 guys at a time. I kind of think like he's going to play Highsmith, depending on matchup dependent kind of, whenever, especially when Love comes back, because Thomas Bryant's not going to be getting those minutes. It's definitely going to be Kevin Love whenever he comes back. And Drew Smith seems to be the odd man out at this point for Alec Burks for his offense. What I really liked about Jaime's game is that he played a complete game and a very efficient game. And he really worked hard in the offseason on his 3-point shot, and he's knocking them down, man. 66%. He was 2 of 3 today from 3. He really was getting into the paint. You know, he's 5 for 10 from the field. He also had 9 rebounds, 3 steals as well. And that speaks to the team. We talked about how well the defense played in spurts. They had 14 steals as a team. So you couple that with the low turnovers, it was just an excellent showing. And I just love the fact where Jaime doesn't have to be with a certain group to make his numbers work. He impacts the game, fingerprints on the game, no matter who he plays with. And I'm just a big fan of the way he goes about his work, never complains, and just does his job. I love it.
Sean, Duncan Robinson is 4 of 17 from 3 so far this season. Should we be panicking about Duncan Robinson? Talk us off the ledge here.
What's Tony say? Water will find its level.
There it is.
That water is real low in that water bottle right now. Listen, he'll find it. He'll find it. It's like he's just such a rhythm player, and right now he doesn't have it, and you can kind of see it. The confidence that we saw or we heard in preseason at media day where he was firing back at Ethan, it just seems like it's not there anymore. 2 of 7, at least he's still shooting them. I like that he's continuing to get them up.
Agreed.
I think eventually it'll come back. It's just one of those things that right now he doesn't have it. And, unfortunately, Alec Burks is not shooting the ball well either. He's not really getting shots up. So it's not like he's starting to step on his toes or coming from behind or anything like that. But the other guards are shooting the ball well. The one thing as we're talking about the bench group, all of the starters besides Jimmy, and I will say this, single game plus minus is a horrible stat. I shouldn't have even brought it up. But all the starters were negative. Jimmy was positive, +8. The entire bench, including Thomas Bryant, was positive. So just something to take a sip of that and, spit it back out.
Duncan Robinson, a +15 as we, circle back to him. So maybe it wasn't all bad. The bench unit definitely. I mean, I have to say this about Detroit. That is a mess of a team. I don't know what they're doing there. They have guys in front of players that they should be just letting play. I guess they have to spend their money somewhere, but I was happy to see Miami win tonight because I would have been super grumpy in this post-game show had they lost to a team like Detroit that just is in I guess no man's land is what you can call it. Let's get to our next segment here, which is we're going to hone in on a specific play. It's going to include a couple guys that were close to player of the game but didn't quite hit that. It's our mobile seam, arm, and staffing play of the night.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
We don't have to get too technical. Terry Rozier threw a sick alley-oop to Bam Adebayo with about 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. It was 50-43 at that moment. And it was crazy, the angle that he got the ball up. Bam caught it. It was definitely the play of the night. I don't know how to articulate it any better than go find it. It'll probably be on SportsCenter, but it was definitely the play of the night. Final thoughts, Adel. We'll go around the room on final thoughts, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah, just some of my final thoughts was like the fans in Miami get upset at the third quarter sometimes, but they're professional NBA players, right? Like the other teams get paid too. So adjustments get made at halftime, and it's a game of runs in the NBA. So what I really liked was going into the half, the Miami Heat had 16 assists and only 3 turnovers at the half. They shot 42% from 3, and they had 16 steals. Even with that third quarter, they ended up with 14 steals instead of 6. So they kept up the defensive deflections and pressure going out of that second half. So a lot of that was in the fourth quarter. They had 24 assists overall. And like I said, the overcoming those second chance points, if you can do that and still win, that's a good thing because Spo's going to teach that. We're going to get better at that. Never going to be excellent at it the way the roster is constructed, but it's just very encouraging being able to win in other ways with this team. So I'm just very encouraged by the depth of the team. Tyler and Terry taking a burden off of Jimmy, getting in through the regular season, and hopefully that leads to a fresher Jimmy and some success in the postseason.
Sean, final thoughts on tonight's game. And I guess, Adele, I should give you the opportunity so we can close with it. But any D Wade statue thoughts as well from Adele? Let's sneak you in here. Any D Wade statue thoughts?
So my statue thoughts are this. My first thought is that he's going to be immortalized. It's going to last forever. And he's the iconic player of the Miami Heat franchise. That aside, I love the memes. The memes are hilarious that are going around Twitter. And Dwyane Wade's such a class act for a franchise player. I mean, the way he handled that and the way he spoke about it in the media, he didn't pretend he didn't see it or notice it. He just, took accountability. He was like, hey, I know it's not perfect, but the moment was perfect. And me representing this franchise is perfect. And that's all that matters. So I love that. I just thought it was great. It was a big honor for him, for the city, the Miami Heat, and the franchise. And also, again, the memes. Fan base can have fun with the memes. So who cares?
It's true. He's able to laugh at himself. And truthfully, he got us through the third quarter when Detroit was making the run. And they had him on the broadcast with Eric Reed. And basically, he was just singing sweet nothings to Miami Heat fans. And it got them through what was an ugly stretch of Heat basketball. Sean, your final thoughts on the game, and then any D Wade statue thoughts as well.
Well, besides D Wade saving us, thankfully we were at home and we could swag surf after that third quarter. That always gets the fourth quarter going, and we always bounce back. So 1-0 after the statue, a big fourth quarter after the swag surfing. I don't know how you want to attribute those things, but no, seriously. The cool thing about D Wade night, that Terry Rozier really looks up to Dwyane Wade as a guy that he modeled his game after and always looked up to. And he had a hell of a game tonight. So it's cool to see him do that in front of Dwyane Wade, obviously early in his Heat career. And it's good to see them get a win. Obviously, the Knicks coming into town on Wednesday. There could be some news with Jalen Brunson. We heard that he went to the locker room. I didn't watch that game, but it's going to be a tough game. It's Heat Knicks. It's going to be physical. You know how they play. A lot of new bodies out there. And so it's going to be a fun one on Wednesday, and we'll see what happens.
Yes. Interested to see how they match up with New York. I am not sold on the Knicks yet. I don't think anybody probably thinks that that's any big surprise, but we will have you covered for that game. Remember to check out Off the Floor. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Adele, Sean, for your time. We will have you covered for Heat Knicks, and definitely you'll probably get a podcast in between that because that's how we crank them out around here. Peace out, and let's go Heat.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.